You are you are a river that cannot be denied. You are a river that will not be denied. A daughter, a son, born to return. And Father Sky, Mother Sea, remembers each one's name. Alone on our paths, great or small, essentially, eventually, the same.
Malika Ndlovu. Unclassifiable. Poetess, playwright, arts activist, mother, and more and more and more. Veruska De Vita of life. De Vita. Also, similarly, weaving between PR, communications. You have an MA in creative writing from Wits University. But what you want us to know today is that you have always loved the sea, and in fact you are obsessed with the deep blue. Traci Kwaai, the Fisher child. One in line of 6 generations. Story keeper. Traci, what has the water given you? Just for a nice light question to begin with.
I think it's, for the most, it's given me joy and community and sustenance. And I think it is those 3 things that connected me to the sea. Through ancestry, through cultural practice, and through just being a watery body living just across the road from the beach. But essentially community and joy, and connectedness and indigeneity, which often I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what it meant to be indigenous.
What does it mean?
To the land.
What does it mean
Connected.
to you today?
Today, I think I've had to go through this journey of discovering things about the ocean that I didn't know because I wasn't allowed to enter those spaces. And I didn't know that the ocean was mine. The deep parts, right? I think most brown bodies, we live in the littoral spaces, in the spaces where our bums and our bodies can feel the land and the sea at the same time, where we feel space, we feel safe. So not there in the depths, but the big blue, not there where the mermaids go, but here where the ancestors stay, in these shallows, where things happen, where you learn the practice of reciprocity, and you learn about the practice of spirituality. The shallows, I think, is where I learned about my indigeneity, in the shallows. Yeah. So.
And at 45, the tender age of 45, you decided to learn to free dive and go into those depths.
Yes, I did. And I thought I was afraid. Actually, because people told me, or people tell us generally, as brown bodies, that we're afraid of the sea, right? But actually, what they call fear, we call reverence. And that at any moment, being a child of a fisherman, the sea can just take you. The boat can capsize, the rip current can pull you. And so those things that are now joys for me, from the age of 45, where I actually learned what kelp was. I didn't know what kelp was, even though I lived across the road from the sea, because we initially you feel like this plant is trying to strangle you, and through care, community and care, through people like Anya Omadine. Oh, sorry, she will smack me if she knew I said that on stage, but Anya Martin, the contemporary strandloper.
Yes. Yes.
I hope they're not recording this. But to teach me that kelp is my friend,
Yes.
and that I can lie on top if I'm feeling afraid. And so these things it's not something that was natural to me. If I think about what ocean joy means, for me, ocean joy is pro-neutral sand in my bather gusset. Girl! Ocean joy is polished glass of green and blue and brown left by the Cape Flats, like gems on the beach. Ocean joy is also my hair smelling like diesel, because people of color had to swim on Fisheries Beach in Kalk Bay. I'm sure every single person in this room has been to Kalk Bay to eat your fish and chips on the harbor, and that beach that you look at, where there are 10 arches. Those arches have stories, and they are stories of brown bodies who had access because of the railway line. And Ocean joy is, and you can ask my brother this, but ocean joy is seeing the train pull into Kalk Bay Station and us running out of the water and jumping over the shadows of the train as it passed and then running back into the sea again. Ocean joy is getting home and using a bar of sunlight soap on your skin and on your hair. And then going to the waskom and using that same soap to wash your clothes, and then taking that soap into the kitchen to wash the dishes. So it's that after gathering around waskom and homes and families, those are all part of what ocean joy means for me. It's not free diving in the sea. And I think one of the reasons why I felt so strongly to move into the deeper parts was that once I had done that, that actually made me fall in love with the sea, which I hadn't really done as a child. I lived by the sea. I wasn't in love with it. And I think at 45, when I went and got myself a free diving course, was when I fell in love with the sea. And I think what that did for me is that it really changed. I don't want to say it took away a little bit of my indigeneity, but it made me really think about what I was putting into my body. When I see red roman swimming in the sea, and then I go to the harbor, and then I see a red roman just dead there for 450 rand. I feel like this, my heart kind of feel heavy. And I think if I'd grown up, if I hadn't learned to free dive, that would have just been a fish that my dad caught in the sea. But which is why I say it took a little bit of my indigeneity away from me, in a way, learning to do this thing that white people do. But really to fall in love with the deep parts of the sea and get to know the deep parts. I still don't know all of the deep parts, but I'm learning about the deep parts of the sea. Yeah.
Veruska, you wrote an amazing book. I want to congratulate you, where you have really collected stories of people who are connected to the sea in some way or other. Scientists, free divers, musicians. Crept my way into the book. But you yourself have a long history with the sea that dates to before you. I'm thinking about your ancestors. So maybe you can tell us what the water's given you. Use that as an opener.
Oh, the water has given me beauty. It has given me stories. During my childhood, my dad used to tell me stories about his own childhood, growing up on the island of Sicily, which is just off the coast of Italy. He learned to swim when he was really small. He must have been about 3 or 4 years old. And from that very day that he entered the sea and went under, but then managed to go up again, he coughed a little bit, but then actually learned how to read the movements of the sea, of the waves, how it actually held him, continued through his life. And he told me amazing stories about how he used to hold his breath and dive deep down to find octopus and also harvest the beautiful fruits of the sea. And because of that and because of where my family's from, my mother was also born on the island of Sicily. The sea is very much in my veins. Like you, Traci, the sea is in my blood. Malika, you described beautifully how things seed in the soil of your body. And for me, the ocean, the sea, the aquatic environment is so much a part of me and so much part of my psyche that I am so deeply connected to it. That when I do leave the sea, because I live inland, I live in Gauteng, because my tribe is there, right? But I get to the ocean as often as I can. But the feeling that I get when I leave to go back is actually a feeling of grief. I grieve for the ocean. And my heart actually, it grows fonder for the ocean. And in fact, one of my personal earliest memories is swimming in one perfectly round lake. It is one of 2 lakes on family land in Sicily. It is very dark, very navy, and I am about 3 years old. It is August. My cousins are running through the tall flowers. The cicadas are shrill. It's hot. It's that heavy heat that really presses down. And I'm swimming in this unfathomably deep lake. My brother, who is probably 6 months old and is just wearing a nappy, is with my mother. And I make sure that I have my eye on them, because if I can see my mother, then I know that I'm safe. But as I'm swimming, I imagine this enormous mythological sea monster swimming underneath me. And it's so real in my child's imagination that I can actually feel its tentacles sweeping the bottom of my feet. And that exhilaration, that curiosity for the mystery that is water and the mystery that is inside the water has never left me. In fact, it's grown. When I'm walking on the beach and I see seashells, I see little eyes. And like me, their eyes are on the sea. And the more I explored what the sea means to people, the more I learned that there are many eyes on the sea. And beautiful eyes, but also eyes that want to take too much from the sea. And that connection has evolved into also wanting to protect the ocean environment.
Would you mind reading a bit of an excerpt, actually, from, I think it's the memory that you have described, actually.
Yes, with pleasure.
Would you mind? Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So this extract is from a chapter titled, "In Water We Begin." My dad's memories and his stories are told to me sporadically, but with so much detail that they shine vividly in my mind's eye. My mother grew up inland in a mountain town called Santa Ninfa in Sicily, and to this day she's never learned to swim. Yet both my parents have an affinity with the sea. They are bound to it with a shimmering thread that goes back generations. My earliest memory of Sicily is of water on a piece of family land. My brother is not yet 1, and my mother has left him in a nappy as it is too hot for any other clothing. On this plot are 2 perfectly round lakes, water the color of night sky with depths that are unfathomable. I am mesmerized by them. I swim in the cool brackish water. I kick hard as tingles go up my body at the thought of a sea monster with tentacles like an octopus sleeping in its sunless depths. It is a young child's fantasy, so real my toes brush against its slimy skin. The perfectly round lakes are called the Gorgitondi, and somehow they connect to the sea. To me, they are mythical, their depths filled with stories and creatures undiscovered. From my watery territory, I watch my cousins run to the most elevated parts of the property. I watch them look out to the blue line of the Mediterranean just below the sky. As an adult, I discovered that the Gorgitondi are lakes that formed in volcanic craters. They are such a unique geological phenomenon that the land is now a World Heritage Site.
If Traci's the story keeper, then you're the storyteller. You have such a beautiful way about you. When you're reading, when you're speaking, and in your writing as well.
Thank you.
I actually wanted to ask you, but I won't ask you. You spoke about your father, his first time in the water. The way you describe it is so vivid, you know, and you so beautifully, you do it in the first person, that recollection, like it's him, right?
Yes.
His memory.
Yes.
I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm in his little 3-year-old body, you know, and feeling the sand, you know, and it's really exquisite. Yeah, I want to congratulate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ndlovu. I want to talk about your book that is not a book. When you talk about it, you say it's a bag of seeds, grief seed. I want to read a little quote from one of the contributors in your book, Iman Rapeti, who says, "This book is one of the rarest kind, a work in worship to facing the unflinching truth of the sites of pain we must visit in ourselves, the necessary symbolic tombstone washing that wills us to peel away the masks of denial and to go to the places deeply buried to find freedom, not fear." So you say that this book, which is not a book, is a bag of seeds that has been landing in your life for the past 3 decades. Please say more.
It's probably the whole 5 decades, actually.
Okay, we're updating that.
Yeah. Thank you for the question and for naming Iman, because as much as she is my sister, when you say her name, my daughter, who was stillborn on the 3rd of January 2003, is her namesake. And I can't hear one without the other. Just one is Iman Bongiwe. And I'm going there immediately because we are in the water. We're already there. And even if we didn't say a word, when you came in, I felt a lot of heart in this room. You chose to be here. This moment has never existed in this constellation before. And it will be in other constellations, but not this one. With every breath that we take together, the water that is us. When I think of what the water gave me, I can't actually discern where the separation is. Sometimes I say it's because I was a whale in my last life, and borders, andias. I don't know. Migration is as natural as breathing. The sense that I can find home in many places with people who are not my blood is because I do have ancestry from all over the place, and because the bodies of water is first where I come from, ancestrally across the waters, ancestors in the waters, lovers of water, are lovers of the ocean, but instantly, how do you talk ocean without river? How do you talk mountain without lake or river? So this interrelatedness, it's inextricable for me. When I think about the animal that I am, I can't live far from the sea. And it's not only because I was a whale in my last life. I am not well when I don't live near a body of water. I also, at 21 years old, had kidney stones because I didn't drink enough water, not understanding what that health fad was about, not understanding that water bodies need replenishment, and that I was so disconnected from my body that I ended up in that feverish fetal position with pain I can say is worse than giving birth.
Sure.
It's, anyway, gifts come through the fever as well. So more than singing and sounding, there's a relationship between water, resonance, sound, migration, spirituality, indigeneity, which is not really my word, but earth. We're on a little blue water planet. And in the epic poem, Whale Nation, it begins with, from space, the planet is blue. From space, it is territory of whale. And this perspective around even, so the salt waters obviously that come out of here, my grief has taken me many times to any body of water. Liesbeek. Black River, Liesbeek has got a lot of me. I lived in observatory for 30 years. I gave birth to my children, at least 2 or 3 in that home. And so the connection to listening for when the river's calling, but also when my body is calling for the river or the water or the sea. My daughter, whose name I mentioned, and her brothers, 2 of her brothers are here in the audience. I won't put a spotlight on you, don't worry. But the connection with an almost unspeakable emptiness that comes from carrying womb water to a point that life is viable, as the medical terminology says, and then is not, and that your body is full of breast milk and womb water still in some ways, and that your DNA from that child lives on in your blood. Every child you've ever conceived is in your DNA. So again, where are the lines? Are they gone? Are they lost? Are we not connected? I don't really believe it. And why I mention her is because she, through a commemorative ritual with her, I have brought circles of women who have had all kinds of losses, as we all have, into a dawn ritual, because she was born at dawn and buried the same day. So the ritual was not to visit a gravestone, but to keep going to the water. And for several years I did that before the book Invisible Earthquake came out of that. But that ritual has been a 21-year practice that I didn't think about curating. Its medicine worked for everyone in the circle, and we were mourning different things that we didn't even need to name. We trusted the resonance. There were times a sister wanted to walk on her own, other times we wanted to picnic together, other times we were sharing our tears around whatever, and other times, and some of those sisters are sitting in this room that have been part of those rituals of 21 years. And so, as you can hear, there's an inextricability. Even when I've traveled, Greece, Spain, Japan, the UK, Croatia, I have Holland. I'm always, so where's the water? I mean, obviously in some places it's inescapable, right? And magical places like the island of Terschelling is still it's like a fairy tale in my head, because we spoke of shells, gifts from the sea, and that's actually people's houses, right? Our other kin's houses. But but very powerful resonators. The vibration of who lived in that house, I feel like I can still feel. So I'm not just taking them from the sea, I'm asking, can I take, and am I receiving? None of this is new. None of this is unique to me. I'm just drawing in some of the threads of for resonance with you, with your heart story. And then this book, Grief Seed, very little grows without water. and very little heals without water. And when we talk about all these rivers meeting the sea as a hashtag, it's a lot in a few words. To be still and remember members of the broken family. What does that mean? To return. All of us the same. So I wasn't singing a song. I was hoping to do some vibrational medicine with you without knowing, and some heart resonance as well. So the rhythms and the vibrations and the cleansing and the healing and the grieving and the joy and the memories of almost being drowned by a few boys in a public pool, and. I think the water memories are in the water in our bodies, our cellular memories, not only in our bones, but in our cells, in the water of our bodies. So I am definitely, you just can't see my fluke or my blowhole, but it's there. And so many songs, so many poems, so much joy, so much ancestral communication, whether it was the KwaZulu coast or the Eastern Cape or the Western Cape, or as I said, elsewhere in the world. So many voices in the sea, so much music, such an abundance, which we are, which we come from, which we are waking up to remember, to return to. And then we can't not see each other. That's it.
I'm going to ask you to read something, but you're just reminding me. There's something that you put in your book, or maybe I heard you talking to Nancy Richards or something, where you spoke about the fact that all of the water in the world, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, all of the water is the same water that has been around for billions and billions of worlds since the world began.
It is.
And meaning that all of the water in our bodies is that same interconnected water. So we are part of.
And the cosmic water, apparently there was a talk just yesterday where somebody said, did you know that the hydrogen in H2O from the Big Bang has never existed before, and it's still on the earth through us?
Listen.
Yes.
The water that is in our bodies, that's the only, there's no new birth of hydrogen other than the ones we are carrying. Yo! Are you hearing what I'm saying?
Dropping that mic.
And cosmic ocean, nog al, you know?
I would love for you to, if it calls you, I'd love for you to read the prose part of this
Okay.
text.
Okay.
Tending.
Tending. Tending to our grief is wellness or wholeness work in this business of being human. You can avoid, procrastinate, neglect, or ignore it, but the work will still and always need to be done, to be given your attention. It's a matter of when and at what cost of this illusion of deferment is for you, impacting on your body and anything you are trying to build or grow. And with healing or grieving being cyclical in nature, a natural process as part of our human experience, it is clear to me that this is not the kind of work that ever gets done entirely. That's not the nature of grief. All I have written here bears that inherent sense of inconclusiveness, whole enough as is for now. Yet it all speaks to being with this incompleteness, the allowing of multiple ways to let grief be. Just that, let be. Integration is like scar tissue. It does not erase or deny what happened. Through making evident, making its mark, and being allowed to exist, to take its time, it serves the healing enough to reach new stations. It alters the inner landscape and unearths fresh ways of being, quietly gifts us portals into extraordinary presence and unimagined possibilities, like new skin that could not have come to be without death or release of the old. The soil of our lives is enriched, breathes well enough to rebirth precisely because of what was allowed to fall apart, disintegrate, transform, surrender as compost. It's hard. I'm a keeper of compost.
She's a compost keeper.
A compost keeper.
Veruska, your story seeking took you to many places, to talking to people who were interested in the ocean, many different facets of the ocean. I'm very fascinated with the story of a particular tribe in Malaysia. Is it the Bajo?
The Badjo.
The Badjo. Please tell us about that, and tell us about the scientists that you spoke with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I had the pleasure and the privilege of chatting to a genetic scientist by the name of Melissa Ilado. She lives in the United States, but her curiosity about a particular population in Malaysia called the Badjo actually took her there and she started talking to them about their connection to the water. She had a hunch about this group of people because they dive so deep and so often on one breath. She surmised that their spleens, which is an internal organ that holds beautiful oxygenated red blood cells, are probably a lot bigger than other humans on the planet. She learned how to speak Indonesian. She made friends with the chief and his wife. They actually brought her into the fold because they were curious about this themselves. Everything about them is connected to the sea. Their songs, their food. And she even saw that the soles of their feet are so soft because they hardly ever walk. They're always in the water. So if they're not in their houseboat sleeping on the water, they're diving in the water. And what she discovered is that their spleens are indeed 50% times bigger than people who live in the next village and most other people who live on the planet. And I also, just as a continuation on that, because South Africa is such a melting pot of people from all over the world, I often wonder if those larger spleens, that superpower spleen is actually present in some people who live on our coastlines. I would love to know that.
Well, isn't it also true that it wasn't just the divers, but it's also the non-divers?
Yes.
I mean, that's genetically.
Yes.
So that the whole population
the
actually.
whole population.
I mean, that is fascinating. Come on.
So what has happened in this group of people is microevolution. So across, like, probably about 60 generations, so over about 2,000 to 4,000 years, their bodies have actually evolved. Their bodies have been shaped by the sea, and they're actually better at diving and living in this magnificent aquatic environment. The same has happened in other populations. There's the Korean women divers who dive around the island of Jeju. So it always used to be the men who used to dive. But about 200 years ago, the taxes that were imposed on the men for the fish that they used to spear and the beautiful fruits of the sea they used to harvest got so high that it just wasn't plausible anymore. So being human and always figuring something out, the women actually started diving because they weren't taxed. And what happened to their bodies and to this population is because the women dived right up until the last day that they were pregnant, their bodies are able, they don't actually get high blood pressure. So the kind of dangerous high blood pressure that you get when you're pregnant, they don't experience that.
Because their heart rate slowed down.
Their heart rate slowed down very, very quickly. So when we actually put our faces into water, there's something that happens called the mammalian diving reflex. We have receptors around our eyes, and the minute our faces touch water, our metabolism actually starts to slow down. Our heart rates start to slow down, although it can feel like it's going a little bit faster, and then it actually slows down dramatically because now we're holding our breath. And that makes our body so much more oxygen efficient. We can dive for longer. It's not dangerous because our internal organs, the important ones, are protected, and there's actually enough oxygen in our blood to sustain us. Not for very long. I mean, the world's best free divers can probably hold their breath for about 11 and a half minutes. Beginner free divers like myself and Traci, 1 minute, 3.5 minutes. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes to actually hold your breath for a lot longer. Your body actually adapts quite quickly. In a matter of, I'd say if you want to get to about 5 minutes, if you do it regularly, i.e. every day, you could probably get to that in about 6 to 8 weeks. Wow. That is how quickly the body adapts. So this mammalian diving reflex causes heart rate to slow down, metabolism to slow down. But in these women divers, it's even quicker. And this is happening in divers who are 60, 70, 75, 80 years old. And they do it with such ease because also with them, their population has adapted. And again, it's the divers and the non-divers. It's everybody. And that to me is a beautiful, they are beautiful examples of how connected we are to the ocean and how the sea actually shapes us so that we can be more a part of it.
Anybody have any questions?
About whether you're a fish or a whale or a crab or a stingray. I'm not going to say how are you, I'm going to say what fish are you or what mammal are you, crustacean are you.
Up there, ne?
Yes.
Oh, you got it.
Hi there. My name is Kopano. I think I was a starfish in another life, but that might just be aspirational because I'm a Pisces. I have a question. Inspired by what Traci was saying, but it's not necessarily directed at Traci unless Traci feels so cold to answer, but anyone can answer who feels so cold or engaged. I'm thinking about when you were talking about indigeneity and what indigeneity means to you, how for me what indigeneity brings up is the idea of stewardship. And when I think about stewardship, I think of the book of Genesis in the Bible, where there are translations that talk about, I think it's like on the 6th day, God made man and gave him dominion over the crawling beasts of the land and the swimming beasts of the sea. But there is a translation that translates the word dominion as stewardship, right? And so God created man and gave him, her, them stewardship over the crawling beasts of the land and the swimming beasts of the sea. And I'm wondering, especially with the spiritual components that water holds, in a city like Cape Town, where there is local government leadership that are entertaining the concept of privatizing water access, which will specifically affect mostly people who are on the peripheries, who are already experiencing the political ramification, or in a very direct way experiencing the political ramifications of spatial apartheid that is still ongoing in the city. What is our responsibility as people that understand themselves as indigenous in relation to stewarding the land?
Yeah, I think we can all comment on it, but I also like to use the word custodianship, or what it means to be a custodian as a body from Kwaai, whose family have lived there for 200 years, and who are small-scale indigenous fishers, and who have, over the last 300 years, have had to endure hardship because of greed and government, and how, if we would return small-scale fishing, that we would actually be able to start healing the ocean, because it's so slow and it's so spiritual. It's one fisherman, one line, and the vast sea. I always bring my totems with me, those shells on the table there. One of the memories of a particular shell, I'm actually going to fetch it. It's this one here. Most people know this as an alikreek, but indigenous fishermen call this a gap, G-U-P, gap. We have indigenous fishermen names for, I think, all our ocean animals and species. And then there's this one, which looks like an ear, so it's called the Venus ear. But indigenous fishermen call it a klipkoos, which comes from the Dutch word klipkousen. And klipkoos and pellamoen, they don't really look the same, right? But all of these animals taste the same. And during the winter months, when there was no food or no money, because fishermen have not gone to sea for 2 weeks, and so there's no money to buy anything, women in the community, like 14 women, would go down to the rocks to harvest this klipkoos so that they could make mince curry and frikadels and all kinds of delicious things. But because of apartheid, indigenous people lost those areas of harvesting, the women specifically. And so we were only given one tiny portion of ocean space to harvest next to the harbor. And of course, when you're learning to harvest as a child, your parent places this gap shell on your little hand and says, if it's smaller than your hand, you put it back so that we can eat next year, next season. And so it was very important for them to teach us to give these animals a chance to grow so that we could survive every year, because the survival of the ocean is also dependent on our own survival. And so there is this relationship of reciprocity that we've always had with the sea. And so in many ways, that was severed from us. Those practices, our children now, they don't know what harvesting is. They don't know what this gap shell is and what it means to take this animal from the sea and to make a meal out of it. And with the NGO specifically was started for the purpose of teaching children what it means to be a custodian of this land. And so that's where the important work is, because my mother harvested the same thing at Danger Beach and Delbroek when she was young, By the time I grew up, it was apartheid, and I wasn't allowed to harvest these at Delbrook and Danger Beach, but I could harvest it in that tiny little section next to the harbor. But what had happened after apartheid is that very same thing we're talking about laws, is that science and government get together without any agency for indigenous people, and they say this area has now been called a marine protected area, right? We are protecting the ocean from being over-harvested. And so there are still ways of keeping indigenous people away from land and natural ocean spaces, and also from them doing their harvesting, which is a cultural practice. The cultural practice of harvesting this is so important in terms of spirituality for children, because it teaches me where my food comes from. It also, there's so much respect that comes with teaching children about custodianship. And so, so I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah. So these totems always remind me that I am a custodian of the sea.
I don't actually think we have any more time for questions. I'm so sorry to say that. Was there a burning question?
Or sounding back. Just sounding
Burning.
Burning.
Okay, go.
We'll burn this question away, but I think we need to also realize that the ocean is not niche. And there's a discussion here in this room with specific people with interest towards ocean. But then if you look at it realistically, not everyone is connected to the ocean. We're so consumed by land problems. We're so consumed by our day-to-day that seems to be out of the ocean. And there has been artworks out there where people have reimagined maps around the coastlines of the water. And instead of looking at the globe as like continents, you look at it as water body, and then around it is the coastlines of different countries, so that it can seem as though it's one ocean. And I want you to imagine that. Why? Because that's how you start to see the importance of ocean and sea life and water. And I think that it's still a privilege about ocean. It's not in every context where there's a coastline with community living in that coastline that is connected to understanding what that ocean brings to them. And a lot of times that was because the waters were actually colonized and taken away from them, and that it was a source of, the water would bring in these people that are not welcome. So there is actually a lot of story in that. I'm Sudanese. There's a coastline by the Red Sea, and I think that's where we've seen a lot of colonies come into that, through that space. So naturally, the coastline's population sees the ocean is actually a source of a problem. It's not a source of life or prosperity. So I think it's just important to also put that in our mindset of how sometimes we romanticize the ocean, and sometimes we remove the proper context of there is history that needs to be reframed, or there's conversations that need to be reborn that aren't there. I work in ocean innovation. I work in that space where we try to bring these safeguarding tools, but then I also see how disconnected it is from realities of thousands of coastlines across the world. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. We have run out of time, but if there was anything that you maybe felt you would like to leave us
From the book.
with from the book, a thought, you can choose. Veruska.
Zolani, I just wanted to bring your experience into the mix, if I may.
Sure.
Yes, please.
So I had the absolute pleasure of chatting with Zolani in the process of writing my book. And she explained to me the beautiful experience of her reconnection with the ocean, where she was actually commissioned by Craig Foster to go and find a song
The
that
Song
was
of the
in
Sea.
the Song of the Sea in the kelp forest.
Yeah.
And the way that you describe that very first day is so beautiful, because I think it was a moment that really shifted you and changed you.
Big time.
And I think your connection to the sea is so beautiful and so steeped in your own lore and your own Xhosa lore. And I love how you live that on a daily and a regular basis. I love that you swim regularly and how it reflects your mood.
Tamaku, Veruska. And if you want to know more, please get the book. Thank you, my sis. Thank you, Ndlovu. Thank you. Mami?
Oh no, I was waiting to hear you
Hi,
speak.
man. The time's finished.
Okay.
Maybe
What-
you can leave us with
just-
something.
Not, yeah, just a small
choose.
from the beginning. So the book is full of water, rivers, rain, seeds, ones that live in the water. But overall, thinking about the regenerative nature of grief, the grief and the seed are equally important. This darkness, these listening waters, carry the invisible whole. This darkness, knowing soil, holds the unforgetting fragment. Everything we call gone, lost, becoming compost, immortal wave, within the unseen continuum, becoming, unbecoming, becoming, unbecoming, becoming, unbecoming, becoming, unbecoming. Thank you.
Malika, Ndlovu, Veruska De Vita, Traci, Kwaai.
Thank you. Thank you.